Hi guys, I'm Gasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times. And today it is time to take a look at all of the books that are coming out in the month of September.
It's coffee time.
So I like to make these videos every month to let you guys know which are the new releases. I normally just focus on books that are thrillers or horror so that, you know, I give you some spooky read options. Sadly, there's so many books coming out that I cannot mention all of them. And also these lists are so long. I know I'm putting a lot of people on the spot because they have to add so many books to their TBR piles. But, you know, we're together in this. This is a common suffering that we all share. So I'm here to talk to you about a total of 29 new books. Now, I also wanted to mention that depending on the country that you live in, the dates might vary. So I tend to stick with the publication dates that I can find on Goodreads, but depending on your country, they might change a little bit. So make sure to check it out. And now let's start and talk about all the things that we're excited about, because there's also a couple of my favorites that are coming out in the month of September. I mean, favorites, I'm really excited about them. I don't know if I'm gonna love them or not, but they are by authors that I really enjoy, so I'm hoping to love them. So the first book that we're here to talk about is called Song of the Red Squire by C.W. Blackwell, and this is a novel based on the 40s. We're in North Carolina in 1949, and we have an agricultural inspector that is going to a village, like to a town, to kind of assess and make a report on some apple breeds. And apparently what he goes there to do is supposed to be a secret, but the people from town are about to find out his purpose there. And he ends up following a really weird woman into the woods. That is all I know, and I think he ends up finding some rituals that have to do with crops or something like that. So I don't know if it's gonna be something like a pagan ritual or something like that, but anything that it is this mysterious already intrigues me. The next one is a compilation of short horror stories that I'm really excited about because they are all short stories based on Latin American myths and legends. So sign me up for that. And the book is called Our Shadows Have Claws, and it is edited by Amparo Ortiz and Jamil Said Mendez, and this is YA horror in case I have not mentioned it. And I think it's a total of 15 different stories, and I'm just so excited to discover, you know, myths and legends about other cultures. I have recently been kind of investigating folklore horror movies, so I'm a lot into folklore horror at the moment. So I'm really excited to get to know all of these different myths and legends. The next book is about Americans' history and legacy on racism, and it is a book that it is a YA horror, and it is by an author that I have been meaning to try for the longest time. The book is called The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson, and we follow a teenager that she has been kind of having a problem with bullying, but she's always been able to deal with it until somebody reveals one of her deepest secrets, which is that Maddie, our main character, is biracial. So now she has a different type of bullying coming at her, and she's gonna have to deal with it. I'm really intrigued about this story because I don't think I've ever also read a book in which we address the topic of being biracial, and in this case our main character Maddie, she looks basically like any other white girl, so she's always been able to hide it until somebody else has made public that she's actually biracial. The next one, I don't really think it's particularly horror because it's the new Stephen King release called Fairy Tale, and he's been kind of exploring other genres, and I totally get it because he's been writing horror for most of his life, and I feel like now he's dipping again into fantasy and some thrillers, and you know, good for him because he probably wanted to tell these stories in the past, but he felt kind of like he had to stick to horror. So I'm not mad at all, and I'm still enjoying his writing. The story is about a 17-year-old boy that inherits the key to a parallel world in which good and evil are at war. That's all I know. Sounds good enough to be. Obviously I'm gonna pick it up. Obviously I'm gonna get it as soon as it comes out, because you guys know that I love to read Stephen King, and I'll probably make a vlog about me reading the book. And talking about how much I have been craving some folk horror, I have now an anthology of short horror stories that are folk horror, so it's gonna be perfect for me. for especially spooky season, and that is called The Gathering Dark, an anthology of folk horror edited by Tori Bobalino, and this is specifically YA horror. So what I'm expecting from this is obviously a lot of rural settings, some summonings, some ancient pagan gods, stuff like that, some myths and legends. And I don't know, I feel like this year my autumn/fall season is gonna be full of things like that, especially when it comes to movies, because I'm kind of in the mood for folk horror at the moment. And now we have another short horror story compilation. I feel like there is a lot coming out in September, not really sure why, but this one is by Rachel Harrison, and I've read books by her before, and these are all her short horror stories, so it's not different authors. It is called Bad Dolls, and it explores like complicated female relationships, body issues, but also huntings, so it's kind of like a mix, and I'm really excited to see what kind of stories she has to bring us. Next we have a book that I have recommended to you guys since the beginning of times, well, since the book came out, and that is Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke by Eric LaRocca. And I know that the original edition that came out in paperback was discontinued, so now it's coming back re-edited together with other stories. It's called Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke and Other Misfortunes, and it is your chance now to read that story that for me has been my favorite by Eric LaRocca so far. I have enjoyed everything he has written to this point, and I am obviously gonna pick up a copy of this one. I do already have it on my Kindle because he was kindly enough to send me an early copy, but obviously I'm gonna purchase this one for my own personal collection. Now let's go to some middle grade horror. So we're going from Eric LaRocca, which is really disturbing, intense adult horror, to middle grade. But this is a book that it is another ghost story, perfect for spooky season, and it's called The Replacement by Lindsay Duga. And this is, like I said, middle grade horror, and it is about a ghost that basically takes over the body of a girl. So it is about a possession, I guess you could say. Instead of a demon, a ghost takes over the body of this girl. Next we have another author that just keeps popping out books like it's nothing, and that is Darcy Coates. She comes with another book in 2022, and that is Gallows Hill, which is another gothic mystery thriller. And you know, she always touches the paranormal department. That's kind of like her expertise. It follows a family that lives in Gallows Hill Winery in this beautiful house, and everything seems perfect until the mother and the father go to bed one evening and they end up in the morning found dead. So the daughter inherits this place in the winery, but she doesn't want to have anything to do with it because the place is believed to be cursed. So obviously another kind of paranormal hunting kind of story by Darcy Coates, which is going to be perfect for our spooky season. Next we have a book by another author that is well known in the horror community, and that is Ramsey Campbell, that is coming out with another book called Fellstones. Paul's parents died in an accident and he blames himself for that, and after his parents died he was adopted by a family that it is a little bit weird. They tried to change his name, and there's something wrong with that family that he cannot quite pinpoint, and there's something about a song that they always sing that it's really creepy. So I don't know, I like this. I like those scenarios where people are thrown into families that have some secret maybe rituals or stuff like that. I don't know if it's going to go that way, but Fellstones make me think that there's going to be some certain objects or stones in this village that maybe are related to some sort of religion, god or something. We will have to find out. Next we have a horror novella that sounds fantastic, and I was lucky enough to get an early copy, so probably by the time you see this video I have already read this one because I'm gonna take it on my Kindle to Spain for my holidays. So this one is called Lucky Girl: How I Became a Horror Writer, a Krampus story by M. Rickard. So this is based on Krampus, as the name implies. So this woman meets some strangers at a diner and she invites them over to her place for a Christmas dinner. And in this Christmas dinner, I think they all each tell a ghost story. So I'm really excited to see how this one goes, and if it's good, then you know what to pick up for this Christmas season. Now let's move on to a YA horror story based on an island. The book is called The Depths by Nicole Lesperance, and we are in an island where there are a couple of ghosts from the Victorian era. They are trapped for eternity, and there's also more secrets to be discovered in this island. We have a 17-year-old girl in that island at the moment, and she refuses to become also one of those ghosts in the island, trapped there forever. The next one is one that I'm also going to read as soon as I can, and that is Full Immersion by Gemma Amor, because I want to give a couple more chances to the author to decide if she's an out-of-buy author for me or not. So I'm really intrigued about this new work by her because the premise sounds so interesting. We follow a woman with amnesia that has discovered her dead body and decides to go on a quest to figure out who killed her. So yes, please. There is also some sort of presence that is coming after her that she calls the Silhouette, which is going to put her in danger as she tries to unravel the mystery of her own death. Moving on to another anthology of horror stories, in this case about something that a lot of us fear, which is to be completely isolated from civilization, that loneliness of being completely alone in the wilderness or wherever you might be. And the book is called Isolation, the horror anthology, edited by Dan Coxon. So this is an adult horror anthology, and it has many well-known authors here. We have hikers lost in the woods, we have an astronaut stranded in space, we have prisoners with no hope to escape. So it's all people that one way or another are completely isolated. So I think it sounds terrifying but also really interesting at the same time. I don't feel anybody would love to be in that position. The next YA horror book has been pitched to be a mix between The Thing and Wilder Girls, which is two things that I enjoyed, so I'm really excited for this one. It is called It Looks Like Us by Allison Ames. So a high school student decides to join a research party going to the Antarctica for the winter break. So there's other kids there from her high school as well, and they end up making a really dark discovery, kind of similar to what happened obviously in The Thing. So it appears to be something that looks human but might be a shapeshifter. It might be somebody that is able to change the appearance, hence the name of the book. And needless to say, this is a must read for me because I love that. Now we have a middle grade book. It is a middle grade horror book that it takes place in the 80s, and it said it's for fans of Stranger Things and stuff like that. So count me down also for this one. This one is called The Stars Did Wander Darkling, and it is by Colin Meloy. So this is another one that I have to pick up. So our main character in the story has been watching a lot of horror movies, which we stan, and suddenly he starts to notice things around him that look creepy, unsettling, things that lead him to believe something is going on around him, but he thinks, oh, it's just my brain, I just have been watching too much horror, so I am kind of exaggerating, you know, I am just making things up, until the adults start to act quite strange. So if this doesn't sound good to you, I don't know how else to sell this to you guys. But this just sounds fantastic. Now we have an adult horror that sounds extremely good, also extremely horrifying, and it is called The Butcher by Laura Cat Young. So our main character knows that when she turns 18, she is going to inherit the family business, which is basically a butcher shop, but they do not kill animals. They are taking care of dismembering guilty criminals that have been executed. It sounds so disgusting, and basically what happens is that one day her mother refuses to kill a child that needs to be executed and butchered, and I believe that is what gets her mom in trouble. So that's what I know, and I'm so excited. This sounds so horrific. I'm guessing there's gonna be some body gore in this one, obviously dismemberment, I mean, what can you expect? But this is definitely one that I am extremely and weirdly excited about. The next one is a queer horror fantasy by Hailey Piper, who has been a member in the horror community, a writer that a lot of people have been loving. So I'm really excited to see what she does next. And this one in particular is called No Gods for Drowning. And I believe we are in a kind of a fantasy world where things are not going great for humanity in general, and on top of that there is this serial killer that starts dropping like dead bodies that have been killed in specific rituals throughout the towns and stuff. So that's what I know. I'm excited. I do tend to like to read some fantasy, but I don't read so much of it. So when there is horror fantasy, it's the perfect excuse for me to pick it up. Now we have another horror fantasy, but in this case is YA, and this one is called Darwood by Catherine Yu, and I like this one because it is about vampires. So nobody pays attention to Aja until her sister Fiona goes missing. Nobody knows what happened to her, but one day Aja encounters these really charming vampire that wants to take her into the woods and probably will make her disappear as her sister did. So I'm really excited because, you know, everything that it is related to vampires I'm excited to see, and this seems to be a vampire that targets young females and lures them into the woods. I don't know exactly for which purpose. Is it for killing them? Is it for turning them? I don't know, but I really do want to know. Next we have one of my most expected releases of this year, and that is Daphne by Josh Malerman, and I'm really excited about this one because I'm hoping this is going to put a spin on your classic like urban legend tale, and I just cannot wait. So it is the last summer before college for Kit, and there is this big game that is going to take place, and the evening before the game the friends just meet and they're telling each other kind of ghost stories, and one of them brings up an urban legend about a girl that used to go to their school that was mysteriously murdered and nobody figured out what happened to her. Her name was Daphne, and it is said that if you think about her, she will come back for revenge and kill you. So it is kind of like a classic urban legend and a vengeful spirit, but I'm all for it and I'm so excited. This just sounds like so much fun. This is another one that I'm gonna pick up the moment it comes out. And now we're going back to another middle grade horror book, and that one is Agatha Anxious and the Deer Island Ghost by R.J. McDowell. That was a long name. So basically in this story we have this girl that is trying to solve a mystery of her aunt. Her aunt goes missing and she's trying to figure out what happened to her before it is too late. So she's trying to save her wherever she is. And also our main character discovers that she has this gift, which is that she's able to talk to ghosts, I believe. So that's where, you know, the ghosts come into play in this mystery horror spooky middle grade. And now we have another one of my most anticipated releases for 2022, and it has a stunning beautiful cover, and that is Ghost Eaters from Clay McLeopold Chapman. This is adult horror and it has to do something with the supernatural. Obviously we have ghosts here. So Erin has had kind of like an on and off romance with this guy, and she decides that it is time to really end it for good and focus on her career and her future and her life when the ex-boyfriend calls her to kind of help him out of rehab, and she just ignores him and decides not to go. Now the next time that Erin hears about him is to find out that he has died of an overdose, so she feels extremely guilty because she didn't go to him when he needed her. With all of her guilt, Erin tries to find a way to communicate with the world of the dead, and apparently she succeeds, but when she comes back to real life, she is able now to see ghosts that are related to her past. I am so excited about this book. I just cannot tell you how exciting it is for me. I have loved the author's other two books so far, and this one just sounds like it might be a new favorite, so I'm just extremely excited. Next we have a gothic horror fantasy that sounds amazing, and something tells me that it might be about vampires, even though the name vampires is not mentioned in the synopsis, and that is House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson. And I'm really excited for this because if it's about vampires, I need to know. We follow this young woman that has been raised kind of in poverty, you know, in the lower classes, and she finds a way to kind of climb up the ladder, the social ladder, and she finds a job for a blood maiden, and she decides to take it because it is in this beautiful mansion. So she realizes that there is something a little bit off about the people that live there, and there's other blood maids there with her, and one night they all start disappearing one by one. So she realizes that things might be getting a little bit too dangerous for her. Now let's change to something completely different because we have a non-fiction book, and this one is going to be perfect for people like me that love to know about certain legends and myths, and these ones are particularly ones from America. The book is called The United States of Cryptids, A Tour of American Myths and Monsters by J.W. Ocker. So if you want to know more about real myths and legends of the United States, this is going to be perfect. I always love to hear about all of these non-fiction stories and see what things are around, what kind of things made it into legends and myths. It's just so intriguing. And now let's go to yet another one of my most anticipated releases for 2022, because it is by an author that has written one of my absolute favorite thrillers, which is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. So his new book is called WISHLIST, and it's another thriller, and I need to have it, and I need to know. I don't want to know too much about it because if it's something like I'm Thinking of Ending Things, it's probably better if I don't know too much going into it. All I know is that we follow a really old woman that basically is just spending her life comfortably, but every day is the same. She lost her partner a long time ago, and she has recently started to paint again, which is something that she used to do. And you know, she's just watching time pass by and watching herself slowly, you know, get older and older, something like that. But probably there are some twists and turns. Probably there's something that's just gonna make me gag, like in I'm Thinking of Ending Things. And this one is one that I just need to know. So this one, I'm picking it up the day it comes out. Next we have a YA horror that sounds fantastic, and that is The Sacrifice by Rin Chupeco. This one just sounds so good to me. I'm so excited to get to this one as well. So there is a legend of this island that it is absolutely stunning and beautiful, with beautiful plants and beautiful beaches and sand, and the sea is blue. But the people that know about this island always tell them that it is cursed, that they should not go to this island. And you know what happens when you tell people don't go there? They go there. They totally do. So we have a Hollywood crew of people that want to film this, and they know that there is supposed to be this legend of a god in this island, that if you give them 8 sacrifices you get something back, something like that. But I'm like, yes please. We have, you know, a filming crew from Hollywood that are determined to go to an island that they've been told it's cursed, do not go there, and they're like, we're gonna go there, we're also gonna film it. We're gonna do sacrifices. Like, what are you guys thinking? Like, what are you doing? So it sounds so interesting to me, and I really want to know what's with this curse, what's with this god that's supposed to give you something if you offer them sacrifices. I just need to know. I have questions. I need answers. The next book, I don't think it needs much explanation to sell itself, because I already want to read it just knowing that this is a Buffy retelling. It's called Big Bad by Lily Anderson, and this is of course paranormal Buffy retelling. I feel like we've got a couple of these in the past couple of years, and I'm so happy to see this because Buffy is always going to live in my heart, and I just cannot get enough of stories about Sunnydale and Buffy and also other characters. Now this is a retelling, but the synopsis does talk about fighting some villains like Spike and Drusilla, so like the classics from Buffy. So I am beyond excited to pick this one up as well. Next we have a book with a really interesting concept about humanity and how we are doomed and how we can potentially be saved, and that is Leech by Hiron Enns, and this is a gothic sci-fi horror queer tale in which people, instead of, you know, having people study to become a doctor, there is a specifically institute now that shapes the minds of people to become doctors, because they are searching for cures for everything that might potentially destroy humanity. And something happens one day that releases a virus that might end up and wipe humanity for once and for all. So this is where we're at. It sounds really like an interesting concept that we have created this Institute of Health, and we create these doctors and shape their brains in order to become doctors for this institute. It just sounds so interesting to me. And again, sci-fi horror we don't get enough of, and I'm gonna need to pick this one up. And the last book that I would like to talk to you about, it's called A Child Alone with Strangers by Philip Fracassi, and this is an adult horror about a kid that is being kidnapped and taken to a rural farm, and the boy is trying to escape his captors and ends up creating a bond with some sort of like ancient creature spirit that lives in the woods, and together with this ancient creature he's hoping to escape his captors. It sounds so good to me. Sounds like some supernatural story, but also connected to some kidnapping kind of real killer thing. So I am really excited for this one as well. Alright you guys, so these were the 29 titles that I had on my list that are coming out in September. There is a lot, and I hope that there's something for everybody. There's some middle grade, some YA, some adult, so there's things, you know, I hope for everybody here. And so many things sound too good, and it's not gonna be good for my bank account in September. Also, many of my most anticipated releases are all cramped together in September. Good thing that my birthday is in August. And I probably have some money for books because I'm gonna need it. So September is gonna be so full of books that I want to read. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I probably have to end up doing some vlogs to tell you guys how I'm feeling about the books, because I miss doing vlogs so much. So maybe I'll do some reading vlogs like at least once a month, because I really do miss those videos. Let me know down below if you miss my reading vlogs, because I certainly do, and I hope to get back to them soon. Also, let me know if there's any other book releases for the month of September that I didn't mention that are horror that I might love to read as well. Let's talk about the new releases down below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in our next coffee time. Bye!